Aloha, welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. It's been a while since we've made a video. We've been going through a fairly epic drought here. We went about 2.5 months without any measurable rainfall. And the fall here is, fairly hot by our standards. So we're talking every day is pretty much in the low 80s. And still pretty strong sun, and then we also had some decent wind on occasion, actually pretty regularly. So that combination, a lot of wind, a lot of drought, it's been kind of brutal on the food forest and has really made me rethink a few things. So you can see, like where I'm standing right now, this once lush carpet of perennial peanut is now pretty barren. However, this past week we got 7 inches of rain. So it can come heavy when it comes. And so one of the great things about perennial peanut is it will bounce right back. Although a little bit of a timing issue because it does slow down substantially over the winter, almost goes completely dormant in terms of new growth. So we'll see if it fills back in before we get too deep into the winter. So, for those of you that have been following the channel for a while, let me interrupt myself again real quick. This is the belly spinach, which is normally like such a nice, lush, dense tropical plant. It's just reduced to mostly bare stem with a little bit of growth at the top. And we've been watering a lot through the drought. It's just that when you get no rainfall and you're dependent on your own watering, you're just not going to get much of the root zone as much as the rain does. And it's just not the same as like the kind of slow soaking in effect from the rain. But this is another one that'll bounce back. Actually look close. Obviously you can see growth at the top, but there's also quite a few spots. There we go. There we go. You can see new growth coming out. And so, yeah, we'll bounce back. But for now, I wanted to mention, if you haven't been following the channel for long, and I don't even know when the last time I brought this up was, but when we were first looking to move on to this property, so we're on the Big Island of Hawaii. This is considered the wet side of the island. I certainly wouldn't be frustrated with drought if I lived on the dry side. It's just kind of the norm over there, but it's very odd for it to get so dry on the side that we're on. We usually have consistent trade winds that blow moisture in off the ocean, and we're pretty close to 1,000 feet elevation, which just gives us a nice spot where we historically have gotten a lot of moisture. And that's what kind of brings me to my point, is that when I was looking to buy the property, I tried to do as much research as I could about rainfall and temperature range and all that kind of stuff. And what I kept bringing up was that the annual rainfall can fluctuate quite a bit from year to year, and it can also fluctuate quite a bit depending on where your exact location is, where your elevation is, kind of which direction you're facing the ocean, if you're on a more of a point or more like in a recessed bay. All of that can make a big difference. And so it's definitely hard to get a very accurate assessment of your annual rainfall. But the numbers that I was seeing for this area were, the low end was like 80 inches a year and the high end was 120 inches a year. So that's a lot of rain, right? Now, the other component of that is, okay, but is it evenly dispersed throughout the year? Does it come all at once? And so I looked at the rainfall broken down by month, and the lowest month was September, so just the period that we went through. But it was 4 inches of rain over the course of the month. So I looked at that and thought, well, that's no big deal at all. I can definitely design a food forest that doesn't need irrigation if I'm typically going to get at least 4 inches of rain a month. And as I mentioned, we just went 2.5 months without any measurable rainfall. So my guess is, like, if we were to measure the aggregate, little sprinkles we got here and there, maybe 1/10 of an inch total for 2.5 months, and then 7 inches in 4 days. So, and this is our 5th year on this property, and it's been like that constantly. We've had droughts at least once a year, every year we've been here, that have lasted for months. So my idea of not irrigating has become a huge problem, not only from a maintenance standpoint, but from a expansion, where do I go now standpoint. And so I'm sort of right in the middle of my food forest right now. If you've seen previous videos, you kind of may recognize where I'm at. And basically the ocean is north. So now I'm turning east, going back towards the house. So this is what I would consider to be like a zone 2 food forest. This was the first area that I planted out. It's a very diverse mix of fruit trees, and then a lot of the support trees in there are the tithonia, banana, ice cream bean, gliricidia. I've got some monkey pod trees. I've got some, they're not native, but they're what we call canoe plants that the Hawaiians, the first Polynesians, Hawaiians brought here, like kukui. I've got Acacia confusa in there. I've got sandalwood. So it's a lot of variety, a lot of diversity in there. And it's densely planted. And I am building an understory of the perennial peanut, which we were just taking a look at. So here, like, you can see a coconut, perennial peanut around it. And basically I just let it spread and dig out the grass, let it go. I tarp sections, although the wind has had its way with this tarp them, and then replace that with the perennial peanut. And so this section I'm not too concerned about, really all of zone 2, because it will more rapidly make its way to being more of a self-sustaining forest ecosystem, and it can survive drier periods because there's a lot more shade. The wind is heavily reduced because of all the dense packing of the trees in here, and of course there's ground covers and deep mulches and all of that. Also, it's zone 2, so if I do have to water it, it's not as bad or as big of a deal to get water to this section. And essentially it's uphill, downhill, and it's just a section that's about anywhere from maybe as small as 100 feet to maybe as high as 200 feet. It's not that bad. But then as we head out further, we've got this middle section, which I keep fairly mowed. I mean, for one, the view is amazing, and so we will often sit up here. The chairs have been blown around by the wind, but sit up here, enjoy the view, play with the dog, have him play fetch up and down the hill, get him nice and tired. But as far as like its ecosystem function right now, I'm just mowing this grass on a fairly regular basis, and this is the source of a lot of my mulch for our kitchen garden. It's just the cut grass. So it's a pretty good system. I'm happy with it right now. I intend to leave this open, and then as you cross to the other side, this would be more like zone 3. It's more newly planted, although this upper section, as you can see by the size of the trees, has been here a little while. So they're getting more established. This is the section that has been a little bit of a maintenance nightmare in the drought, because just watering all of this is difficult. The trees are younger, so they're not as established in their roots and things, but as you can see, we're getting some bigger ice cream bean out here, getting some more shade. The wind is stronger here because there's not enough plant material to break the wind. And so I've decided to put in a number of measures to try to reduce the amount of maintenance hours that I have to spend out here, and just improve the health of this system and allow me to continue to expand zone 3 and then off into zones 4 and 5. And so one thing which I've already started is I'm planting more material in here to break the wind, to create a little more shade. So we can see the bare sticks here about every 5 feet on a diagonal going down. Those are Tithonia. And so I'm obviously a fan. You can see it everywhere with the big yellow flowers. And a lot of the Tithonia that's here needs to be heavily pruned, and actually just waiting because we're about to get a wood chipper. And instead of just doing like the standard chop and drop, I'm gonna chip that down and put that in as mulch. But we'll have this wall, like a hedgerow really, of the Tithonia, and it'll be mostly for windbreak. And so I'll let it get fairly big until it starts to get kind of sparsely, have like sparse leaf cover like these, and then I'll prune it back so that it'll come back. But in the meantime, we'll have the other plant material out here too to kind of block the wind, so hopefully it won't open it up too bad. And so my one idea is to have these diagonals all through my sections here. I've got 2 of them planted so far, about 10 or 11 Tithonia plants each, and I just want to continue kind of putting those in all the diagonals to really slow the wind down, create some shade, and also slow the grass growth down a little bit by creating that extra shade, and I don't have to mow as often. As far as like mowing maintenance, I'm trying to keep them on a diagonal so that I can actually just diagonally mow. Right now I've been going across, but it's kind of irrelevant as long as there's a convenient way for me to go back and forth without having to go around too many trees and things. So that's the first idea. The second idea is I'm actually going to put in an irrigation system for all of the fruit trees out here. That's going to be a little more difficult. You've got this rambutan that is actually fairly happy considering that it's in blazing sun, has no wind protection. And here you can see a soursop that really looks pretty ragged. They like a lot of water, so this is pretty sad. But it will come back. I've noticed a lot of new growth tips on the branches. We've probably lost some of these. We'll come in and prune them out once I'm sure that they're gone. And this would also be a pretty heavy fruiting season if we had adequate rainfall. Like you can see, there's little flowers everywhere. But I do have other ones that are looking much better than this, so we'll still get a decent crop of soursop. So anyways, these support trees like this ice cream bean will not have irrigation. They don't need it. They're here for support, so I don't, that doesn't make sense to me to irrigate them and use that resource for them. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I have a pipe that is run. You can kind of see where I dug the trench. Runs along here, and as I get to this part, there's not much planted out here. There's a few support trees like ice cream beans and things, but there's no fruit trees. And here we've got another spigot. And at this point, this is the last spigot on the line, but I will be continuing that on out into zones 4 and 5. So essentially, right at this point, what I want to do is put in a multi multi-spigot head here, like a 4-way thing that I can switch to 4 different channels. And as I kind of look down the hill, I'm going to run 2 of them that will be sort of to irrigate this left side, and 2 of them that will be to irrigate the right side. And so for each of those pairs, 1 of each will go all the way down to the bottom, and the others will go down just a little bit. And so there'll be irrigation lines to irrigate the top 2 sections, and then the other hose that goes down will irrigate the bottom 2 sections. That way I don't have to worry about, pressure differences or anything like that. I can get a pretty even water distribution if I'm only focusing on 2 sections at a time. And that way, I turn that on, and I come out here and I manage, which sending to which system I want to go to, run it for a finite period of time. And basically that'll just consist of probably a 3/4 inch irrigation tubing that I will trench into the ground, and it'll come all the way through. And then when I get to my fruit trees like this Casteri mango, I will have it run right uphill of the tree ring. This is where I've got that rotting wood rings around the trees. And then I will I think I'm going to do 4 drip emitters that come off of that. So like the little smaller hoses with the drip emitters at the end, to kind of do like 4 corners for each one of the trees. I'm going to do a little testing and kind of look at the saturation rate to really hone in on exactly what I want. But I don't think it's going to be so bad, because that one line, for example, in this section on the top, there's 1, 2, 3 fruit trees that would each get drip emitters. And then as I go back, there would be, I believe, 2 more in that section. And that is all that would be on that 1 3/4 inch line. So 5 trees on one line, not bad. And then there'd be another set of fruit trees in the middle, and then a 3rd row. So basically 3 rows of fruit trees per section. It's 2 sections, which means I'd have 6 lines running with the emitters. And long story short, it's a lot of trees that literally have to be watered by hand right now. I hook up a hose to those spigots I was just showing and just stand there at the trees one at a time, and it takes forever, as you can imagine. I actually think it takes about 16 to 18 hours to water everything, and through this drought I've done that almost every weekend, so can't get anything else done. It's and that's another reason why we haven't made a lot of videos lately. Anyways, hopefully that's been interesting, and give you a little update of how things have been going here. I mean, given the circumstances, it's really not too bad. Now hopefully we're heading into the wet season, and we'll get more continual rainfall, and my goal is to get this irrigation system up and running in the spring, so that when we get to summer, which tends to be hotter and drier, and certainly the fall, which tends to very consistently be straight up drought, it will not be as much of a strain on me as it has been. And it'll also give me a little bit of motivation to start cutting the grass here and building out tree circles, planting support species, and just really getting that area set up. So I'm excited. It's something I've kind of avoided doing for a long time. Just sort of thinking, oh, the drought this year, that's an exceptional thing. It's not going to be like that every year. I don't want to put in all this infrastructure if I'm only going to have to water here and there. But like I said, it's been every year. And, as we are often hearing in many places all over the world, it's the new normal, right? So it's becoming very unpredictable. The people that have lived in this very specific area have, all kind of voiced that they don't remember it ever being like this before. You might have a drought here and there every few years, but certainly nothing like this where it's just several times every year. So we will bring you along for some of those updates. We'll show you as these Tithonia walls kind of fill in, and certainly have you check out our irrigation system as we're putting that in. And we'll have some other updates coming soon now that I'm not having to water all the time. Get you an update on how our agroforestry systems are going. Been doing a lot of expansion in those areas because they are irrigated, which is great. I don't mind putting trees in the ground right now if they're irrigated, and I know it's not going to create a lot more work for me. So we appreciate you joining us. We will see you again soon at Ina Bear Farm. Aloha.